Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, I wanted to discuss, since we just got a new ban list in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, what the best decks would be, and what I would think of as the best decks. Now, we have a bit, like a tiny bit, of information post-ban list as to what might be the better decks, just because we have seen some tournaments played with the new ban list, but it has been very few. And I do want to just give you my stipulation for this list. This is 4 best of ones in the ladder, right? So best of ones on the ladder, you know, what's going to be the easiest or what's going to have the best time on the ranked ladder, basically getting to Diamond 1. So, lots of new decks have been hit and introduced, and let's talk about it. First and foremost, Virtual World. Virtual World popped off in the most recent Duelist Cup due to having access to VFD, aka True King of All Calamities, also known as the Very Fun Dragon, VFD. So, now that that card is banned in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, how good is this deck going to be? First and foremost, I do think so many people are going to be dropping the deck because of the True King limitations, but in all reality, the deck is still quite good. Reason for it is that they can still go into Ultimaya Zulkin, as well as ending on a board with the Ultimaya Zulkin, the Chuche, the Shen Shen, as well as the Crystal Wing Synchro, which allows them a monster negate, a pop, as well as just an overall floodgate by banishing all of the cards from sent from field to grave, which all in all can be enough to win a lot of duels. We see this as similar boards to something like a hero player board, but the difference is that they're also ending on a negate, and they could potentially end with hand traps as well. I would say, though, that it will lose a lot of popularity as well as a lot of power, and I think that it will be, I'm going to say tier 3 at the moment. I don't think it's nearly as good in best of ones without having that basically auto win button. The fact that they brick as well as just overall aren't putting up strong enough boards to really contest does mean that it will lose to things like Flunder, things like Eldritch, things like going second, and the like. Moving on, we have Drytron. Drytron is just currently not seeing any play. However, it's still very strong. I'm going to actually just throw it in the same tier here with Virtual World. And the simple reason for this is that, honestly, it's still very good. It can still set up the Ava Ben 10 shenanigan loop, end on infinite negates, or you could even play a different version with things like the, I forget the effect, but it basically allows, it basically just skips your entire turn. It's just a turn skip. You have draw phase, standby phase, and end phase, I believe. I don't know if all of those cards are currently available in Master Duel, but I know that's what they're doing in the TCG, and it's still very strong. But again, in terms of representation, as well as in terms of best of ones, I think that they are a little bit bricky, but more importantly, they if they end up going second, they don't play through boards very well. They do play through boards well, but not as well. And I think a lot of the boards that people are ending on end on a floodgate or something along those lines that can entirely shut out the Drytron player, which is a bit problematic. They're not as bricky, I would say, as Virtual World, but in a similar vein. Next up, we have Tri-brigade. This is just Tri-brigade, but Tri-brigade has a lot of different ways to play the deck. First of all, they have the Tri-brigade Lyrisk, they have Tri-brigade Zodiac, as well as pure Tri-brigade, aka Tri-brigade and a million hand traps, or like DPE and adventure and stuff like that. All in all, I will say that Tri-brigade itself is probably the best engine currently still available that isn't Helked on, which, I mean, isn't really an engine, it's just a facilitator. You could basically go into that with so many different things. But with that being said, I'm going to put Tri-brigade at 1.5. I want to put it in 1. I think it's one of the best decks going forward. Even though it did get hit, I still think prior to the limitations, prior to the hits to Tri-brigade and to this ban list, I still think that they were one of the best decks. I think people just weren't playing it because we've played it so often. I'm still having a ton of success with this deck even till now. However, I do think that due to representation as well as a little bit of the power level, the best I could put it is like bottom of tier 1, but I'm going to put it at tier 1.5. I have another deck up here that I want to throw in that same tier, which is Invoked, aka Invoked Dogmatica Shaddoll. The reason for this is that in best of ones, they can end on some pretty stellar boards that are, again, a Floodgate and something like a Negate, with Mechaba as well as the Winda, as well as a whole bunch of other hand traps or, you know, insane recursion. You can also play it with 60 cards, which can facilitate the Shaddoll engine and can allow you to play through boards, because if you get that grass to go through, it ends up just kind of like winning you the duel on the spot. And all in all, it's just a very, very solid deck that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. Very, very strong overall. Definitely more so the Invoked Dogmatica Shaddoll rather than just like Invoked. We've actually seen it win a top tournament as well. I think it was like a over 100 player tournament, but it was like a $5 one or $500 one by one of the bigger tournament hosts. So all in all, it is definitely something to watch out for, which is why I'm putting it so highly. Just seeing that, hey, people are still able to play this and still top, definitely something to be scared of. Similar in the same vein as Tri-brigade, where it could be a tier 1, just not seeing the representation. Next up, we have Despia. I'm going to put Despia in D tier. This is basically Rogue. I mean, it's slightly below. Honestly, Despia just kind of can't compete in best of ones. The big thing that Despia does is set up consistent recursion, and when so many cards and so many decks are focusing on just blowing out the opponent with the floodgates, with the just killer end boards, with this, that, or the other thing that just kind of wins the game on the spot, having a mid-range deck right now feels very bad. You either have to be very aggressive or very control. You have to basically stun your opponent out of the game with something like Eldritch and Floodgates, or you have to just fully combo off and have like an end board of 16 boss monsters and 4 negates in the back row anyway to actually do anything. And Despia is just a little bit too far behind. I think once we get Branded Fusion, they will pop up to quite a threat, but at the moment I will put them in D tier. I've played quite a lot of it, and I don't think it's bad. I think the margins between a lot of these tiers are very small in comparison to other metas. Right now in the TCG, we have this Splight and Terror Element meta, and it feels like they are a tier above kind of everything else. So the tiers may be more spaced. Here, it feels like a lot of things, especially in best of ones, could move very significantly. So I wouldn't be surprised if this deck like beats any other deck in the format. It's just, it's kind of the weakest one on this list. Yeah. I'm also going to put up here the, I believe this is Sky Striker, if I'm not mistaken. Sky Striker is very similar. They don't really do anything. They're a more mid-range deck. They're like control, but instead of having things like Eldritch and Floodgates to stop your opponent from playing the game, they have things like hand traps, which don't quite do enough. Very similar to Live Twin. I would actually probably put Live Twin here as well. And again, this is just like, it's like Rogue, kind of like the top of Rogue, bottom of tier 3-esque area. Not too bad. Definitely can get to Diamond 1. All of these decks can, but not the greatest. Next up, we have Dinosaur. I'm going to put Dinosaur here in tier 3 as well. I think that they are a step above both Sky Striker and Despia. Reason being is because they can also do some pretty incredible combos. And have you read Misk? No, genuinely, this card is crazy, protecting you from hand traps and interactions. while also just starting your combo. It's kind of crazy, and I'm surprised that this card even exists. This genuinely reads like a fan card, a fan-made card, because of how powerful it is. And with that being said, with the scrap engine included in the Dinosaur package, you are able to end on some quite incredible boards. Next up we have, I'm going to call this the Adventure Tenyi Halcdon Shenaniganry. This is probably one of the best decks in Best of Ones. It can just totally blow out your opponent without them even being able to interact. And people are like, oh, Called By will kill this. Or, sorry, the Crossout limitation will kill this. It won't. It won't. It's Best of Ones. You know, they just have to get lucky once, and they're going to beat you. Also, they don't even need to get lucky. They can actually set up a negate prior to even going into Halqifibrax, which isn't really something that is lucky. That's just something that they can inherently do. And they can also do this through hand traps as well. So it's something where they have such high highs, and they also have so many dead hands that, yes, in best of threes, it's not going to be nearly as consistent, but in best of ones, it's going to get the wins very easily. So yeah, I'm going to put it at tier 1. I still think it's absolutely crazy. There were no hits, basically, to this deck other than Cross Out. Oh no. Next up, we have a Prank Kid. I'm going to put Prank Kid at the top of tier 1. I think it is the best deck, hands down, no questions asked. One Meow Meow Mew does nothing. It's barely a limitation. The reason... it's okay, but the thing is, you can literally just put back the Meow Meow Mew. And a lot of decks are not going to be able to play through even one Raigeki, let alone two. And oftentimes, if you get off that first Raigeki with the Battle Butler, and then have the follow-up to just do it all over again if you survive, is oftentimes enough to just win you the game outright. As well as having things like the high rolls with the adventure engine attached to it as well as being able to still play DPE because you can make Verte pretty easily. All in all, I will say that this deck is still situated to be the best deck. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. We've seen it again in the TCG. The one Meow Meow Mew didn't matter. It was still the best deck. It was limited prior to Adventure even coming out, and so, yeah. Moving on, we have Sword Soul. Sword Soul Tenyi is, I think, a little bit more slept on, and the reason for this is pretty simple. People just moved on to the next big thing. It's not as good nearly as the Prank Kid engine, but it is still very strong. It's a good mid-range deck, similar to things like the Tri-brigade as well as the Invoked, where unlike things like Despia or what have you, they actually have interaction that they can set up, while also being able to continually do this over and over. Maybe not over and over, but they can do it on the crackback as well in order to really blow you out of the game. They can also have cards like the Chaofeng Blackout setup, which allow them to pop 2 cards while also banishing a card from both your field and graveyard, which can be very devastating for a lot of decks to deal with. And all in all, it's just a very consistent strategy. Oftentimes, you can even threaten things like your Halqifibrax combo, which could, you know, force out negation. You can also just like go for the Ecclesia line. There are so many different ways that you can interact with your opponent, both going first and going second, and it's very good for best of ones. Next up, we have Eldritch. I'm going to put Eldritch right here, right next to Prank Kid. I think Eldritch is absolutely crazy. They lost basically nothing, and they can still play a million Floodgates, and you could even play it without the Floodgates, with instead things like Torrential Tribute and the Dogmatic Punishment. I say without the Floodgates, but with less Floodgates and more other blowout cards like the Dogmatic Punishment and the Torrential Tribute to just kind of win the game on the spot, right? Yeah, just set 5 pass, pray they don't have Harpy's Feather Duster, and you're good. It works so often. Yeah, consistent, easy, quick, done and dusted. Next up, we have Salamangreat. Salamangreat, I think, is very slept on. I think that this deck, getting a second Gazelle is absolutely crazy. We haven't had that in the TCG because it's too strong. And right now, okay, prior to Splight, it was situated to be one of the better decks. Just because with the Heat Soul release, as well as some of the other things, which I would believe we are also getting Heat Soul, as well as some other Cyberse support cards. This deck is situated to be one of the better decks. This one, however, I am the most iffy on. It could be very good. It could move up the ranks up to like Tri-brigade and Invoked, or it could be just as bad as Despia. It's kind of up in the air. I'm going to put it at tier 2 because I do think that it has very high potential. I think just a lot of people aren't really aware of what it does, nor how to play it. Definitely has some very high highs, and I think Gazelle coming back to 2 is absolutely crazy for the deck. Next up, we have Flunder. Oh, Flunder is hard to rank because in best of ones, it gets so much better, and we are planning to see more support for it. So I'm actually going to put it up here as well above the Adventure Engine shenaniganry. And the reason for this is pretty simple, but once we get their quick play spell, they will not have to play things like Book of Moon, which are absolutely terrible for it, and they will actually just have ways to dodge effects such as the Imperm, such as Effect Veiler, as well as it will give them the ability to banish their own card in order to add it back off of the effect of something like an Eaglin or a Robina or just like another normal summon, which then allows them to dodge another Ash. So all in all, I think that this is a deck that it just, in best of ones, it's so difficult to beat their boards. If you're playing like a link spamming deck, like for example Tri-brigade, it is very difficult to end on something that can actually beat the Flunder stuff because they just normal summon the M-Pen and then all of your stuff is turned off and you don't get to play the game. So all in all, I do think that it is very strong and definitely situated very well within the current meta. Next up, we have Altergeist. Altergeist is not doing anything with Multi-Faker back to 2. Unlike Salamangreat, right now there's just a better control deck, and that is Eldritch. If you're not playing Eldritch, you're probably not really playing the game when it comes to control. With one exception, technically, being the Invoked Dogmatic Shaddoll stuff. But that is kind of, again, more of a mid-range deck, where it can kind of do everything while having constant resource loops. And yeah, they definitely control the game. So yeah, if you're not playing one of these, you're kind of not playing. Altergeist, Multi-Faker coming back to 2 doesn't really add enough there. Moving on, we have Phantom Knights. Phantom Knights are still one of the better decks in the format as well. I'm going to put them here in 1.5 as well, just because they do a whole lot. They do a whole lot. They can go through Verte Anaconda. They can go through the... they have a lot of different monsters and spell or traps, basically, that are interactions, which having a varied amount of interactions really is beneficial for Yu-Gi-Oh! Just in general. And so, yeah, I definitely think that they are up there at the top. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Sure, Rongo is technically not playable in that deck, but most players, if they were any good, dropped that engine anyway, given the fact that it didn't really do anything, and it was a very bricky, very easy to outline. You just, like, imperm one thing, and then the whole line is shut off, and they basically can't do anything. So, yeah, all in all, I would say that Phantom Knights are still very good. Moving on, we have Tenyi. I don't know what this is supposed to be. So if it's just like pure Tenyi, yeah, it's not very good. Granted, you could obviously mix it with the Halcyon stuff and do that, which ends on a crazy board anyway, because Dangalong exists. But all in all, yeah, pure Tenyi or Tenyi with Halcyon isn't really the greatest. You do need the adventure stuff. You do need things like the level 3 Red Rose or Rose Dragons and the like. So yeah, we'll just put that there for now. But that is all that I will say for this list. For some reason, Evil Twin isn't on here. If I were to put Evil Twin, Live Twin here, again, I'd probably put it maybe a tier above Sky Striker. It's just kind of Sky Striker, but better. You find one card and you get a full combo that actually does more than the Sky Striker stuff. But Sky Striker's cards are way more powerful, so they're a little bit more high roll. But probably on the same tier, if not just a slightly higher. That's going to be it for this episode. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. And shout out to the Frost Guard, my members, Ascended, and Yorda. Thank you guys so much for the support. Hope that you guys enjoyed the content.